Hi everybody and welcome to this video on significant figures. Sig figs are the digits of a number that represent its precision. Trailing zeros are examples of insignificant figures. So let's take a look at a few examples. Here, 25,000 inches. There are 3 zeros that are trailing the number, therefore they are all insignificant. Therefore, we are only left with 2 significant digits, the 2 and the 5. 200 years has 1, 48,600 gallons has 3, the 4, 8, and the 6. Now this question actually has a couple of zeros sandwiched between other digits. They're not trailing anything, they're sandwiched, therefore they do count. Now these 3 zeros are trailing something, so they do not count. And we're left with 5 significant figures in this number. It is important to note as well that trailing zeros does not count as insignificant when they are to the right of a decimal point. And we'll see an example of this a little bit later. Leading zeros. The number of significant figures is dependent on the number of zeros in front of a number as well as trailing. So let's take a look at some leading zeros. In this case, 0.008 millimeters only has one significant figure because the 3 zeros to the left of the 8 are leading zeros. Let's take a look at a few examples. A. Which answers contain 3 significant figures? Number 2 has only 3 significant figures because these 3 zeros are leading zeros. Number 3 only has 3 significant figures because this is a trailing zero. Number 1, on the other hand, has a leading zero and a trailing zero, but this trailing zero is to the right of a decimal place, therefore it does count. Therefore 1 has 4 significant figures. B. All the zeros are significant in, let's look at number 1. These 3 zeros are not significant, they are leading zeros. This one is because it's sandwiched. Number 2, these 2 zeros are significant because they're to the right of a decimal place. Therefore, all the zeros are significant in number 2. Number 3, 2.050. Once again, we have a sandwich zero, and this time we have a trailing zero, but this trailing zero is to the right of a decimal place, so it is significant. Therefore, number 2 and 3 are significant. In C, this is an example of how to round with significant figures. And in this case, 1 is obviously an incorrect answer because 535 is not 535,000 rounded to anything. 2 is correct because these 3 zeros do not count as significant figures. And number 3 is also correct. It's simply 535,000 written in scientific notation. Now, how do we add and subtract or multiply and divide with significant figures? There's some really simple rules. When it comes to adding and subtracting, simply what you have to do is use the measurement with the fewest decimal places. In this example, the fewest decimal places are in 25.2. Therefore, your answer also has only 1 decimal place. Let's look at a couple examples. In A, we can see that the number with the least number of decimal places is 19.6. 2.1 has the same number of decimal places, so we know that our answer is only going to have 1 single decimal place, and that answer is 2, 256.8. Letter B, you can see once again we have one of our numbers only has 1 decimal point, therefore our number will once again only have 1 decimal place. Multiplying and dividing, it's a little bit different, but just as easy. In this case, you use the same number of significant figures as the measurement with the fewest significant figures. So let's look at some examples. 2.19 times 4.2. Of these two numbers, the number with the fewest significant figures is 4.2, and that has 2 significant figures. Therefore, my answer will also have 2 significant figures. In that case, it makes the answer 9.2. Now, these numbers that are underlined on the left are simply representing what your calculator might show you as you do this question. Letter B, 4.311 divided by 0.07. Now, 0.07 only has 1 significant figure. That is the 7. These two zeros are leading zeros. They don't count. Therefore, my answer also can only have one significant figure. That makes the answer 60. Okay, the 6 is a significant and this 0 is insignificant. C, a lot more numbers in this equation, or in this calculation, sorry. However, still, it's the same thing as before. Find the number with the least number of significant figures and go from there. In this case, we can see this one only has 2, this one only has 2, this one and this one have 3, so we know that our answer can only have 2 significant figures in them. Therefore, the obvious answer is 11.